Welcome to Public Health Brief. It starts with 1 cup. Just one, to wake you up. Then another, to keep you going. And before you realize it, you're not drinking coffee to feel better. You're drinking it just to feel normal. The first thing most people reach for in the morning is not their phone, not sunlight, not even a glass of water. It's coffee. Before the day has fully begun, before the mind has had a chance to settle into awareness, that cup is already in hand. The smell alone feels like a promise: clarity, energy, readiness. It feels like control over the day ahead. And for a moment, it delivers exactly that. But what if that feeling isn't as simple as it seems? What if the very thing that makes coffee feel essential is the same thing quietly taking something away? For many, coffee is not just a drink. It's a ritual woven so deeply into daily life that questioning it almost feels unnecessary. It sits at the center of productivity, of social interaction, of identity itself. Entire mornings are built around it. Conversations begin with it. Work depends on it. And because it's so normalized, so widely accepted, it rarely faces the kind of scrutiny reserved for other substances that affect the mind and body. Yet coffee does affect the mind and body. Profoundly. The story begins in the brain, in a place most people never think about. As the day progresses, the brain naturally builds up a chemical called adenosine. This chemical is responsible for that gradual sense of tiredness that creeps in after hours of being awake. It's not a flaw, it's a signal. A message from the body that rest is needed. Coffee interrupts that message. Caffeine doesn't remove adenosine. It doesn't eliminate fatigue. It simply blocks the receptors that allow your brain to feel it. The signal is still there, but it's muted, like a voice speaking from behind a wall. For a while, you feel alert. Awake. Even powerful. It feels like you've overcome something. But you haven't. You've postponed it. And the cost of postponing something natural is that it returns, often stronger than before. That heavy drop in energy in the afternoon, that sudden need for another cup, that sense of crashing after feeling so sharp, that's not random. It's the delayed effect of everything your body tried to tell you earlier. And so the cycle continues. Another cup silences the signal again. Another temporary lift. Another postponed crash. Over time, something subtle begins to happen. The body adapts. It always does. Your brain, recognizing that its signals are being blocked, starts to compensate. It creates more adenosine receptors, trying to make its voice heard again. And as a result, the same amount of caffeine no longer produces the same effect. What once felt powerful now feels normal. What once energized you now barely keeps you steady. So you increase the dose. Not necessarily in a conscious, deliberate way. It happens quietly. A slightly larger cup. An extra serving in the afternoon. A stronger brew. It doesn't feel like a significant change, but over weeks and months, it adds up. At some point, the line between drinking coffee to feel better and drinking coffee to avoid feeling worse begins to blur. And that's where dependency begins, not as a dramatic event, but as a gradual shift in baseline. Without coffee, the day feels slower. Heavier. Harder to begin. The mind feels clouded, the body uncooperative. It's easy to interpret this as proof that coffee is necessary. But what if it's not proof of necessity? What if it's evidence of adaptation? The body, having grown used to stimulation, now struggles to function without it. Not because it can't, but because it hasn't had to in a long time. There's another layer to this that often goes unnoticed, and it lies in the body's stress response. Caffeine doesn't just wake you up. It activates your nervous system. It increases the release of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, preparing your body for action. In short bursts, this can be useful. It sharpens attention, increases alertness, and can even improve performance in certain tasks. But the body was not designed to live in a constant state of activation. When coffee becomes a daily, repeated stimulus, especially multiple times a day, the stress response stops being occasional and starts becoming continuous. Not intense enough to feel like panic, but persistent enough to shape how you feel throughout the day. You might notice it as a subtle restlessness. A difficulty in truly relaxing. A sense that your mind is always slightly on, even when there's nothing demanding your attention. Over time, this low-level activation can contribute to feelings of anxiety, irritability, and mental fatigue. Ironically, the thing many people use to gain control over their day can quietly make it harder to feel calm within it. Sleep, too, becomes part of this hidden story. Many people judge their sleep by whether they fall asleep easily. If they can close their eyes and drift off within minutes, they assume everything is fine. But sleep is not just about falling asleep. It's about the quality of that sleep. Caffeine lingers in the body much longer than most people realize. Even hours after consumption, it continues to influence brain activity. It can reduce the depth of sleep, limiting the time spent in the most restorative stages. These are the stages where the body repairs itself, where the brain processes information, where emotional balance is restored. When those stages are disrupted, the effects are not always obvious in the moment. You still sleep. You still wake up. But something is missing. A subtle sense of incomplete recovery. So the next morning, you feel just a little more tired than you should. And once again, coffee steps in to fill the gap. What emerges is a loop, one that sustains itself. Coffee reduces sleep quality. Reduced sleep increases fatigue. Fatigue increases reliance on coffee. And the cycle repeats. Because it's gradual, because it unfolds over time, it rarely feels like a problem. It feels normal. And that's what makes it so difficult to recognize. There's also a psychological dimension to coffee that is often overlooked. It becomes tied to identity, to routine, to comfort. It's not just about energy, it's about familiarity. The act of holding a warm cup, of taking that first sip, of pausing for a moment in an otherwise busy day, these experiences carry meaning. They create a sense of stability. And when something provides both physical stimulation and emotional comfort, it becomes deeply ingrained. Letting go of it, or even questioning it, can feel like losing more than just a habit. It can feel like losing a part of daily life that brings structure and ease. But comfort and dependence can sometimes look very similar from the inside. The difference often only becomes clear when that comfort is removed. For those who choose to step away from coffee, even temporarily, the experience can be revealing. The first days are often the hardest. The body, accustomed to regular stimulation, reacts. Headaches may appear. Energy levels drop. Focus becomes more difficult. There's a sense of something being off, as though a familiar support has been taken away. It's tempting to interpret this as a sign that coffee is necessary. But what's actually happening is something else. The body is recalibrating. Without the artificial blocking of adenosine, the brain begins to process fatigue signals naturally again. Without the repeated spikes of caffeine, the nervous system begins to settle. Sleep, over time, often becomes deeper. Energy, though less intense in its peaks, becomes more stable. Instead of sharp highs and sudden crashes, there is a more consistent rhythm. It doesn't feel as dramatic. But it often feels more sustainable. This is where the dark truth about coffee becomes clearer. It's not that coffee is inherently harmful in every context. It's not that it must be avoided entirely. The truth is more nuanced, and perhaps more unsettling because of it. Coffee can be both helpful and disruptive. It can enhance performance in the short term while subtly undermining balance in the long term. It can provide energy while also interfering with the body's natural ability to regulate that energy. It can feel like a solution while quietly becoming part of the problem. And because its effects are not immediate or extreme, because they unfold gradually, they are easy to ignore. The question, then, is not simply whether coffee is good or bad. It's whether it is being used consciously. Whether it supports your life or quietly shapes it in ways you haven't fully considered. Whether the energy it provides is truly adding to your well-being or compensating for something that needs attention. Because beneath the surface of every habit lies a relationship. And like any relationship, it can be balanced or unbalanced, supportive or limiting. Coffee, for all its familiarity, is no different. It asks for very little upfront. Just a few moments in the morning. A small pause in the afternoon. A simple ritual repeated day after day. But over time, those small moments accumulate. They influence how you feel, how you function, how you rest. They shape your baseline. And the most important changes are often the ones that happen slowly, quietly, without drawing attention to themselves. That is the nature of coffee's influence. Not loud. Not obvious. But persistent. And perhaps the most important thing is not to fear it, but to see it clearly. To recognize both its benefits and its costs. To understand the role it plays in your life not just on the surface, but beneath it. Because once you see something clearly, you have a choice. To continue as you are. And sometimes, the simplest habits carry the deepest truths. Even something as ordinary as a cup of coffee. So our conclusion is, at the end of the day, coffee doesn't look dangerous. It doesn't come with warnings. It doesn't feel like something you should question. It's warm, familiar, and deeply woven into everyday life. And maybe that's exactly why its impact goes unnoticed. Because the truth about coffee isn't loud. It doesn't hit you all at once. It doesn't force you to stop and think. Our recommendation is, instead of immediately deciding to quit coffee or defend it, maybe start with something simpler: awareness. Notice how you feel when you wake up, before the first cup. Notice what changes after you drink it, and how long that feeling actually lasts. Notice the moments when you reach for coffee again. Is it because you truly want it, or because something in your body feels off? Give yourself space to observe, without judgment. Because once you begin to notice these patterns, something shifts. You move from reacting, to choosing. And from there, you can begin to adjust gently, at your own pace. Maybe that means drinking a little less. Maybe it means changing when you drink it. And if this video opened your eyes even a little, don't forget to subscribe, like, share, and leave a comment below.